My name is Dominic Weaver. I'm the editor of FIDI Focus magazine, and I'm here in Dubrovnik at the 2025 FIDI Conference. I spoke to Christina McCarte of AMJ Campbell International, and we discussed the latest developments with regards to consolidation in the moving and relocation industry. Okay, so Christina, could you tell us a bit about the kind of consolidation you're seeing internationally and also in your home market of Canada?
Yeah, so the international industry is going through a change. I mean, most businesses went through the pandemic with an all-time low, and this is a nice rebound or bounce back from what the pandemic was. The international moving industry is the opposite. We saw a high demand, and supply was lower than normal because the demand was so high. At this time, businesses have ramped up over the last 5 years on employees, overhead, investment in warehouses, and so costs have increased for overhead. Number of employees have increased, and it's time to trim that back to what was a pre-pandemic level, maybe not necessarily in balance, but close to. And what that has done is allow businesses to stop and say, okay, now we're going back into not only what was pre-pandemic level, but also a volatile environment with everything that's happening in the economy and globally. And businesses have to be cautious, not just in the international industry, but overall. Most businesses are refining their numbers, looking at their numbers, saying, where do we see ourselves at the end of the year, and how do we make sure we come out of it profitable? And some businesses will stop and say, okay, is it time, instead of us having 10 locations within a 100-kilometer location, is it time for us to make that 2 or 3? So you'll see a consolidation of resources into one, so less warehouses, less number of crews, more bandwidth of coverage in areas. Some businesses may take that approach. Then there's the consolidation when it comes to businesses that have different divisions may have run separately in separate numbers. Now, a consolidation of those resources again will lower overhead while allowing businesses to leverage their same market. But that market is no longer the pandemic high demand. So they have to also cut back on it. There's also consolidation within the industry from business to other businesses because some businesses will, for lack of better words, not survive the challenging times that are now, not survive the cost increase, not survive the high overhead. And so some businesses will have to choose whether that's closing doors or consolidating with a competitor to make sure either the business continues or your employees are covered if that business is shutting door. So there are different versions of it, but it's needed. And again, we're coming out of a high demand. You didn't have to work for sales, it was there, and now going into a very competitive environment.
So consolidation is as much of an opportunity as it is a threat from what you're saying?
It depends on what side of the scale you are, but it's for health. A business that doesn't have a healthy bottom line is not a business. Maybe a non-profit organization, but without a healthy bottom line, it won't survive. And so business owners have to stop and say, can we make this a healthy bottom line going into a challenging year? And it will be one of our most challenging years since pre-pandemic. Or is it time to close shop? And it's unfortunate, some businesses will have to do that. In Canada, I was looking at some numbers, 99% of businesses are small businesses in Canada. And within the first 5 years, 50% of new businesses will close door. They won't survive. So it's a win for some, and it's a business decision for some to say, will we go into this year knowing we'll come out of it not successful, or it's not viable long term.
Okay, so can you tell me a little bit about AMJ's strategy for coping with these forces that we've talked about in this wave of consolidation?
Well, we're refining like every other businesses in Canada and likely globally. AMJ is, we're looking at our numbers. We have a close eye on, and we start at home. What is our overhead? Do we need it? Can there be a consolidation of resources? Can there be a consolidation of services? Can we take the same crew and use them for household moving, local moving, domestic moving, commercial moving, and maybe in other areas? Can we cross-train that crew? Then we have a healthy crew, we have a healthy business, as opposed to holding 5 crews and not being able to keep them profitable or safe within a long period of time.
Okay.
So that's one approach that we're looking at. Of course, AMJ has done really well for itself on the diversification. So we're not just a moving company. We're not just a local or a domestic or an international moving company, but we play in many other areas that allows us to keep a healthy staff, healthy bottom line, and that allows us to keep our crews and our staff year round. In the moving industry, our peak season tends to be May through September, if you're lucky. And then outside of that, for businesses that haven't diversified, it's difficult to hold on to your crews and your staff and maintain that overhead for what's almost half a year. What AMJ has done is we've diversified to leverage that same warehouse, trucks, crews, and internal staff, where when we're not busy in household, we're busy in commercial. When we're not busy in commercial, warehouse, distribution, final mile, home delivery, logistics, we're playing somewhere else. And so our staff and our crews have been cross-trained. They're playing in many other areas than they used to in the past. But this is also good for staff and business, because now you have staff members who aren't just isolated in one area. They can play everywhere. And you have a business that can leverage staff that can play everywhere. So there's a win-win to it for sure.
So Christina, in addition to diversification, can you give me 2 or 3 pieces of advice that you would give to a small or a medium-sized company for coping and staying resilient in this kind of environment?
Well, for small to medium company, diversification is great, but don't go try and play in 10 different areas. Pick your battle and choose what do you need to invest in order to play in this area. And if you are going to do several areas of play fast, because the truth is you're going to fail in some. Fail fast, learn, and move on quickly, because the longer you hold on to it, the longer it eats away at your bottom line, the unhealthier the business is. So diversification, yes, but there's refinement. It really is. So diversification is your define. Define where you're going to play, what areas you're going to play in, and make sure it is a reasonable expectation for business financially, and as well as the team that you have. And then there's the refinement on, do you need 10 people sitting in an office doing 10 different things, or can you leverage half of that and have it more feasible for the business and the employees at the same time? And I don't mean to sound mean by saying you don't need half of your staff, but an unhealthy business is a business that's going to die anyway. So healthy business, define who you are, refine your business now. We no longer have the high demand that we used to. We have to acknowledge that. Costs have increased, and we have to also acknowledge that. And if the business is going to take all the hit, it's going to hit our numbers. We're not going to come out of it profitable, and a business that's not profitable is not good long term.
And what further consolidation can we expect to see in the next decade or so? Is it something that's going to carry on, or have we reached the peak?
I wish I could predict what the next 10 years will be. Over the next 12 to 24 months, it's not going to get easier for business. Costs have increased. Warehouse space, for example, in Canada has almost doubled over the last 5 years. That cost will not decrease. If it's anything, leases and rentals for warehouse spaces are all coming up for renewal, and that renewal will mean an increase in costs as they renew, which then needs to flow through the business and will hit the bottom line. Labor costs have increased. Cost of living has increased. Your staff and your team will no longer want the salary they had 5 years ago, nor can you pay them the salary that you likely implemented during the pandemic when the demand was so high. So you have to refine that to set proper expectation. The costs for insurance have increased. The costs for trucks have increased. The cost for everything has increased. And so over the next few years, businesses will have to be vigilant and resilient. And the one thing I can tell you, we as an industry are the most resilient one. And we can definitely go through this, but we will see some closures. We will see consolidation. We will see acquisitions and mergers, and there'll be great and good things happening for some business, some not so much, but this is life. The life of a business, the life of the industry that we've decided to love and grow with.